Welcome to Light in the Shadow. I'm Dana Kenyon, and it's my aim to encourage, support, and equip women to live life under the shadow of God's wing. On this channel, I'll be bringing you videos of women who are doing just that. I hope their stories will help you find your path in His kingdom. Under His shadow is where we can walk in His protection, receive His provision, and rest in His care. Together, we will be light under the shadow of His wing. Welcome back to part 2 of our conversation with Erin. Last time, we heard about her upbringing in a Christian home as one of 6 kids, moving a lot, being homeschooled, learning to take risks, and trusting God. She told us about surrendering to His call to serve as an international worker and how He has used her degree in journalism to communicate more effectively as she serves Him in that calling. She shared about her 2 sending churches and her first 2 years of language studies in the country that she went to serve in. If you want more information about Erin's work or would like to know how to donate, contact me at undertheshadow307@gmail.com. Now let's pick up where we left off and hear more about the wonderful work that Erin and her team do. Tell me a little bit more about some of the local projects that you do.
Mm-hmm.
as a team,
You're right.
NGO.
Mm-hmm. So our NGO, non-government organization, has the goal of doing community development and strengthening families.
Okay.
And so we have 2 projects that we're running, and they're based on just basically a great need. We saw a need and we saw an opportunity to fill a need. And so the first project that we started was, or basically both of these were started around the same time, but one of them is a swimming lesson project. And so we had discovered, and in some research and asking around, that the second leading cause of death among children was drowning.
Oh, wow.
And so you read that and you see that statistic and you wonder, well, what in the world? Why, Well, there's lots of rivers and lakes. There's lots of canals and just irrigation ditches and different things that it's a very hot climate in the summertime. It can get over 100 degrees really consistently, 110, 115 even. And so there's less of a value for supervision of your children. And so the kids in a village or in a neighborhood just play together and they're outside and there's less access to the internet and phones and games and stuff. And so they're outside basically all summer, not supervised by adults. And so they get hot, they start going swimming or in the river, lakes or canals, and they get in trouble and they drown.
Oh.
And so we were actually, my team, a couple of summers ago, we were out at one of the big lakes and we were just enjoying a day by the water there. And down the beach from us, we saw big commotions happening, and came to find out and discovered that a young girl in her early teens, 13, 14, had drowned, literally right in front of her. And so nothing that we could do at that point. And so one of the things that we discovered, though, is that we could provide swimming lessons. And so if we're providing swimming lessons to children and giving them an opportunity to literally save their lives, then that gives us time and a platform to be able to actually bring the breath of life into their lives.
Yes.
And so that's one of our projects. It's been hugely successful. We've almost always got a waiting list for kids who want to get in those lessons, families and testimonials of people just being so pleased with the lessons and grateful for that. And then our second project is a sign language project. And so we identified early on that it's not that there's a higher incidence of deafness in the country. I think it's pretty standard across the board, an incidence of deafness. It's just that there are no social services at all. And so
to help people,
for example, right. Yeah. So for example, in America or in the West, even if you have a child, so you give birth to a baby, and within about 24 hours, you would know if there's a hearing issue. They do testing of infants very, very early on. After hours of birth, you would know if that child has any hearing issues. And so then if the child is completely deaf or becomes deaf even from some sort of a childhood illness, you would have access to the county health department, somebody with the city, somebody in your sphere would be able to point you to somebody who could help you start finding resources for that child, right?
Okay, right.
Learning sign language. What do you need to do to help this child succeed in life?
Right.
And so the family would come around. I've heard of instances of neighborhoods finding out that a family had had a child born deaf, and the whole neighborhood then got together and started learning American Sign Language just to be
Oh,
able
wow.
to support the baby. Like, I mean, just super cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, you take that and you place that in a third world country in Asia, and there is nothing like that.
Mhm.
You don't know usually if your child is even deaf until they're 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
There's no testing and there's no services. And so our project, we're able to go into homes and of people who have children who are deaf, either born deaf or from childhood illness, and provide sign language lessons, the local sign language. It's not American Sign Language.
Wow.
To
Important.
the child, to their family members, mom, dad, grandparents, other siblings, neighbors, if they're interested, anyone who's interested and wants to learn. And just provide a way for this kid to have some dignity and some community around them
Yeah.
and some language.
Right.
And so that also has been hugely successful. The Lord just, I mean, even through these two projects, through the ways that I got to Asia, through the ways of like working in that church in Virginia, all along the way, he just flings doors open. I mean, if we have our eyes open and our ears listening, there are doors open all around us. All we have to do is walk through them.
Mhm.
And I mean, the word of God even says we have a God who opens doors that
Yes.
cannot be shut and shuts doors that cannot be opened.
Mm.
And so, like, all you have to do is look around. There are doors open everywhere. And so he has done that in multiple ways with our team, and what we're doing with our organization, with these projects, and in other ways too, with the church, equipping, and all of that.
Nice. That is awesome. That's awesome. You've been home now for a year.
Mhm.
And you have met with your family. And I gotta say, just the little bit that I know about your family, because when you were living in the town that I was living in, we had access to your family here and there. Your parents would come visit. Your sister lived there for a while with you.
That's right.
Other sisters would come and visit, and you've just got the funniest family. The funnest family, I should say. That it's just, there's never a dull moment with you people.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
So
We
you
think
come,
we're funny, that's for sure.
if you can laugh at yourself, right?
That's right. That's right.
So you have come home. You talked about a lot of times when international workers come home from the field, that it will take them some time to kind of recuperate, where they might have some burnout and some, spiritual jet lag and that kind of stuff. And it takes a while to kind of get back into the mode of wanting, to do this again and to just catch their breath for a minute. But you said that you didn't have that issue. You got off the field and didn't experience that kind of need in your life.
Yeah, I think the Lord's just his provision and his goodness to me too. I was tired, definitely. Like you have the normal things of jet lag and just weariness. And I was ready for a break, but I don't think I experienced some of the stories that I've heard or people that I've encountered, like the idea of burnout or just such a spiritual weariness that takes months to recover from. I didn't have that, and I'm very grateful for that. I think part of it is the way that I left last spring. I had to say some very quick and hard goodbyes to my local friends and local people that I miss and love dearly.
Yeah.
My one good friend that she's like a sister to me, so I'll even just call her sister. I don't want to say her name, but um, she is a believer, and she knows who I am, and my family life and where I'm from and what kind of platform I'm coming from. She knows that we're there to serve the church, that we're there to serve the community, and as international workers. She knows like a lot.
Right.
And so sister and I had gotten really close. And I was telling her that I was going to leave last spring and that it was very quick. I had to say goodbye. So she hugged me as I was getting in a taxi to go. And she just told me these words. She said, Erin, because she knew I was coming back to speak at churches too. And so she said, Erin, would you tell the church in America that the church in Asia sends their greetings?
Oh,
Right. And
that's
so I've
beautiful.
had the privilege and sort of the burden, the holy burden to share that with churches, to say that the church in Central Asia, we're in this together, right?
Yeah.
We are on the same team. We are pushing back the darkness, and we are Christ's bride.
Oh, yes.
And we are a beautiful, beautiful bride of Christ. And so that imagery of just sending greetings, and I will go back to the church there and to my friends. And I say the church, I mean the body of Christ. I don't mean a building.
No.
I mean the body of Christ. And I'll be able to say the church in America also sends their greetings, right? Like,
man, I
and so
love
like
it.
we can join hands with that, and we can be on the team together with that. And so because of that goodbye and that kind of ringing in my head, I came back almost from the very beginning with this extra sense of calling and conviction that yes, I am going back. I'm ready to go back. I'm so excited to go back. I'm eager to see what the Lord wants to do in the next few years with all of that.
So you have, well, when you do go back now in June, if that works out that way, you told me that your team is now at critical mass. That sounds
critical.
Sounds amazing. Tell me, what does that mean?
Yeah, so we the original 5 of us will all be back on the field all together. We're all proficient in the language. Since then, we've been joined by 2 other couples and their families, and those people have the language now as well. So we will have 9 adults with, again, that analogy of boots on the ground. We'll have 9 adults ready and gung-ho and excited and listening to the Lord, and with vision and plans and full of faith. And so I say critical mass, and that's what I mean. Like, we're at a critical mass and we're ready to storm the beaches, We're ready
You're gonna explode with the gospel
go, like
Christ, and I love it.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it.
So yeah, it's exciting.
It has not come without a price on your behalf. I mean, on your part. And I appreciate so much your love for the people. I appreciate so much your love for the Lord and your willingness to do something that He's calling you to do. I've got a sign on my desk that says "Do hard stuff," and you're doing hard stuff, but it's not without a price. You have had to count the cost in your own personal life. Tell us what that looks like for you.
Yeah. So I think I can even pinpoint it was like the summer of 2015 or something like that. And I was well into the process of going overseas. I had, done all the applications, and it was looking like I was going to go, and I was going to go for a long time. And it just hit me one day. And I remember being in my pastor's office. I sat down, and he got a lot of my tears that year. he was very gracious and kind with me. And like a brother, he sat me down. And it just hit me because at that point, I think I realized that with my nieces and nephews, I have 15 nieces and nephews. At that point, some of them had not even been born yet.
Mm.
And I was at a crossroads. If I chose one way, I could go back to Texas and I could live here. I could find a job and I could be at Little League games, or I could be at the theater performances or the musical performances or the different things like that. I could be a part of that.
You could be there when they're born.
I could be there when they're born
Mm-hmm.
and be disobedient to the Lord.
Oh, right.
Right. Or I could follow this other path over here where I miss the Little League. I miss the performances. I miss seeing them grow up and be obedient to a good father.
Yeah.
So I get emotional about it, just thinking about it, because that just kind of I hit a wall that day. I was just like, whoa, like just a second, Lord.
Yeah.
And realizing that it is a cost. And getting to that point, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of conversations with the Lord, a lot of processing with my pastor and good friends that are close, and even family, of getting to that point of being able to say with truthfulness and just an open and faithful heart that Jesus is good enough.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there is a cost to all of this, but he's good enough and he's worth it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He is worth it. And so I have continued to have to count that cost at various points. In my first 2 years, my younger sister had a new baby. And I wasn't able to be there, and I wasn't able to see the new baby. All the other new babies in my family I've seen within a few weeks of their life, right? I wasn't able to see this new baby until he was 8 months old.
Right. Right.
Because I came home for Christmas that year, and so I got to see him and meet him when he was 8 months. But now it's kind of cool because the Lord, it all kind of circles back around to, I think when we surrender to the Father and we say, yes, Jesus, even if I don't, maybe I don't truly believe this in my heart, I'm going to say in faith in my head right now, you are enough and you're worth it. When we do that, it circles back around and he gives us little gifts in return, right? He gives us little joys and pleasures in return.
Yeah.
So that guy, that little nephew who I didn't get to meet until he was 8 months old last summer, I've been home now for almost a year and I've seen them a few different times. Even in COVID, I flaunted some of the rules. Oops. And I traveled, but I got to see him last summer, and on the one time on the phone, we were on FaceTime. I was talking to him and he said, Aunt Erin, I have 2 best friends. He's going to be 3 this month. And I said, well, who are your best friends? And he named his older brother. And he said, his older brother is his best friend. And you, Aunt Erin, you're my best friend. So I've got a three-year-old best friend.
I love it.
At that time when he was born and not getting to meet him right away, that was one of those costs that I had to count, right? Those were one of those things that was really, really hard in my heart as an aunt and as a sister, not to be able to be there.
Yes.
But now I'm his best friend.
And that's pretty amazing.
I'm grateful for that.
Can I speak to that just a minute? Let me speak to that just a minute, because we talked about this a little bit earlier too. And you just made the comment that God is enough. But according to our earlier conversation, I would say that God is more than enough, because you said that now, in fact, earlier in our conversation right here on this channel, you said that you have those younger siblings of your host mom that you count as your nephews now. And so God has not just taken that away from your life, but has given you new people now that you can adopt as nieces and nephews, and you love them
That's right.
just, you
That's
love them like family. And so he's not just enough, but he's more than enough. And he takes care of every need of our hearts. And he knows our hearts. So even though they aren't full blood nieces and nephews, you've got nieces and nephews in other places of the globe than your other siblings. So
That's right.
I thought that was pretty sweet too, that he'll even kind of replace some of what's lost. And so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, let's see here. When you're away, when you are in country, the other country, you still communicate with your family there well, don't you?
Yeah, so pretty much every week I'm talking to somebody. Usually about once a week I talk to my parents, and then periodically siblings and different things. Technology is a great thing. So text messaging, Facebook, FaceTime or Skype, Zoom now. There's a lot of really good avenues for communication, which is really very sweet.
Okay, let's see. You came home on home assignment, and one of the things that you do on home assignment is to go to churches and share with them what's happening. I love some of the things that you told me about the churches, how they responded to you and your message. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have been very encouraged by the church here in America, very just received really well, received with joy and positivity and lots of interest and just, yeah, support and giving, and really, really encouraged by even what the church is doing in their own community and the heart that people have for Jesus and his work, not only across the world with missions, but also in their own places in their own community. And so it's been a really positive experience to be able to go around and see some of these places and visit with some of these people.
Yes, and you mentioned going back to the church in Wyoming that we attended together and being able to share with them. So that was a special blessing, kind of the cherry on top. So that's pretty cool. All right,
It was definitely.
let's change direction just a little bit. Well, no, maybe a whole lot. And talk about a word that a lot of people don't like to hear. Single. One of the things that you had to count in the cost of being an international worker was that dream that you called it earlier, that romantic dream of, a husband, what a husband looks like, and how that would look in your life, and kind of happen to let go of that. So talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, so I am 37, single, and never thought that I would be 37 and single.
Okay.
I thought for sure I would be married and have a family. And so it's been a process of learning contentment and learning to release and to hold things loosely. Yeah, so it's just been one of those. It's a thing that kind of comes around periodically, as far as becoming closer to the Lord or being sanctified. It is one of those words that in a lot of ways people don't like the word single, and it can be one of those buttons that is unintentionally pushed, I feel like, in the West and in the Western church.
Okay.
There can be words that are used that is an unintentional little barb. I don't think people are intending it to be.
Probably don't even notice it when they do it.
No, but it's like using that word using the word, when you get married or when you find a husband, that can be a message of, well, then I'm not enough, or I'm not complete, or my identity is in that when, not in Jesus. or even I've heard of people saying like, oh, you still have hope. There's still hope. And it's like, yeah, I have hope because I have Jesus, not because about a husband. And I think the Lord has also given me some perspective in through the years. Someone did a message one time about, she was single and in her 30s, and she had asked the Lord for a suitable companion. So she had been praying for a suitable companion. So I said, okay, I like that. I'm going to start praying for a suitable companion. And then it kind of came back around because I was sitting at a table with some lady friends of mine on the field. And we're talking about ministry and what we're doing and how the Lord is working in our lives and just his faithfulness and some of those just good, deep spiritual conversations that you have with good friends, And it was almost like an audible voice. It was like the Lord was saying to me, Erin, you have suitable companions. Look around you. These ladies, these people, your team, your family, the people that sent you from the church in America, the people in Wyoming that I got to reconnect with, those are suitable companions that he placed in my life all along the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I kind of joke and I laugh with the Lord because I'm like, well, I still want a suitable companion that's like tall, dark, and handsome, Lord. Like,
That'd be nice.
But I think, I know that would be nice, but I think I have some perspective now of yes, I have had just the joy and privilege of having a lot of different suitable companions along the way, people who have come alongside of me, who I have been able to partner with in ministry and in his service in the harvest field. I mean, we've been in the harvest field. And so that has been just a beautiful gift of the Lord to reveal that to me, to be able to say, yes, I'm not married, and yes, it's lonely, and yes, sometimes it can be really hard, but I have suitable companions too at the same time. It's not all about this like girlish romantic dream of this thing, once again, you count the cost and you come up with the fact that Jesus is more than enough.
Yes. You talked about a scripture in Isaiah that says,
yeah.
So
Isaiah 54, Isaiah 54 talks about the Lord is our husband. And so that's true for you, Dana, after having been married for how many years?
43 almost.
43. The Lord is your husband, and the Lord is my husband, having never been married.
Yes.
And so having that eternal perspective and receiving that as a gift, I think is really a cool thing, and can sort of take some of that stigma away. On the other hand, being in Asia as a single woman, it gives me a platform and a place to speak from.
Yes, because that would be completely
in their
Go ahead.
Yeah, in their culture, to be married and to have children is the only value that a woman has. So your entire value and worth is placed in your ability to be married and have children. And so as a single woman in my 30s coming into that kind of a culture and saying, no, I'm valued and worthy in the eyes of my good Father in heaven.
Yes.
That is sort of mind-blowing for a lot of women. It can be really like, whoa, crazy. That I'm able to say that my identity is rooted in him and in Jesus is revolutionary in a lot of ways for them. And so to be that witness, to be that testimony of who he created us to be as women and as people, outside of marriage or family or anything like that, we are valuable because we are his children.
Yes. Amen. Yes, we are.
And so that also helps. I think on some levels it's easier to be single in that kind of a scenario when I'm in my ministry setting, when I'm in that country there. It's not highlighted as much in some ways. It's like the Lord has been able to use that aspect of my life in a way that maybe he wouldn't have been able to if I had gotten what I thought I wanted when I was a teenager, right?
Yeah.
But to be married young, to have a bunch of kids, I might not be here at this point. And so it's, yeah, another aspect of his faithfulness and goodness and provision just in all of that. And so I still desire to be married. I still pray for, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome. But I also know that Jesus is my husband, and he woos me, and we have a deep and precious relationship that is far greater than any earthly marriage could ever be. And so it's not perfect. It's not, I'm still human, and there's loss and pain and grief and loneliness that comes sort of sometimes in waves, and it just happens. But I think with some perspective and some, in my head at least, most of the time I'm able to say, no, this is good.
You're good. You did make a comment that I wanted to share earlier because it was profound. I thought you said marriage is a gift. Marriage is a gift that comes from the Lord. Singleness is a gift that comes from the Lord. Why would I be discontent with the gift the Lord chose for me? And then you also said that every good and perfect gift is from a good and perfect Father. And that spoke volumes to me about where you are, and a really good way to look at that situation. That it's a gift, whatever station you find yourself in life, not just singleness, but whatever station you find yourself in life, it's a gift from God. That's what God has would be best for you. And so not to be discontent with where we're at with that.
Well, and I'll tell you honestly, there have been periods of my life where I have been that toddler standing and stomping my foot saying, no, Lord, I don't want this gift.
Yeah. And I think we all have.
I mean, we all have those moments. There's no perfect marriage. There's no perfect singleness. And so we all have those moments of saying, you know what, Lord, you can take this gift back. I don't want it anymore. But on the whole, if you really kind of get outside of that and you look at it with some perspective and with the power of the Holy Spirit,
yes, that's key.
And say, okay, I'm going to choose to be grateful for this gift today. Yes. I'm going to choose to make a list, if I have to, of the ways that you've blessed me with this gift today. Yes. Whatever it takes to get to that place of gratefulness and thanksgiving for the gift that he's given us, whether it is a marriage that maybe isn't perfect, or it's a singleness that isn't perfect, whichever way you go. Yeah. And he's a good father who can handle that toddler moment, right?
Yes, he can. And he does that often with me.
So that's fine too,
It is. He is a good father, and he knows those things about us. He longs to just be with us. He longs to just have our heart and spend time in his presence with him. Right. So, well, friend, it's about time to wrap this all up. But you told me a story when we first talked, and I'm hoping that you can tell that to our audience again.
Yeah. So I just think as far as like dwelling in the shadow of his wings and this idea of mission, and even that aspect of my friend who said, send, the church in America greetings, we're all in this together, kind of a thing. Yeah. I heard a message from a dear lady. Her name is Jill Briscoe. She's an author and a speaker. And she's about 80 something years old at this point. Yeah. And so she's spent her entire life serving the Lord. And she was on this stage at this ladies' conference that I was watching virtually a couple of years ago. And her whole talk is amazing if you can find it. But she had so many good things to say. But the one thing that I just keeps popping into my mind is this beautiful 80-year-old lady standing on this stage of probably hundreds of women. And she's standing there kind of like with her feet a little bit far apart. And she looks down at her feet and she's basically saying, the one thing that I have learned, or one of the best things that I've learned from the Lord in my life, is that the space between my 2 feet, and you look at the space between your 2 feet as she's standing on that stage, that is my mission field.
Oh, yeah.
And so you think about that, the space between our 2 feet. It can be anywhere that the Lord leads us, anywhere. Maybe he's leading us into a time of pain or suffering or grief. Maybe he's leading us into a time of great joy and rejoicing. Maybe he's leading us into the valley. Maybe he's leading us up to the mountaintop. Whatever that looks like for each of us, we're all in this together. We're all a part of his body. We are Christ's bride. The space between our 2 feet is our mission field. And so if we think of that, it kind of takes a little bit of the hard out of it, maybe, or the scary. Like I said earlier, it takes the scary away if you think of it in those simple terms. No matter where my feet are taking me today, if I'm going to the pharmacy to pick up prescriptions, or I'm going to, the grocery store, or I'm going to work, or I'm going wherever, that is my mission field.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think for me, at least, that was profound. That was sort of like, wow. Because I think I've thought in these bigger terms of like calling and mission field and harvest field and going out into the world. And yes, that's important. That's great. But it's the space between my 2 feet. So even here in America, with my family this year, with COVID, getting to tour, not getting to tour, going around to churches, whatever it looks like, that's my mission field.
Yes.
And that's it. And so it becomes really simple. It becomes outpouring of what the Lord has done in my life and the joy that he's brought in some of the pain and suffering and some of the things that I learned even from when I was a little girl with my parents. It becomes sharing that in the space between my 2 feet, wherever I'm at, it's sharing that.
Yes.
That redemption and salvation through Jesus. And so,
amen.
Yeah.
And each one of us, the same thing. Each one of us, the space between our feet is our mission field.
Yep.
So, well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us today. What a blessing. What a blessing to hear how the Lord has worked in your life and continues to work in your life. We appreciate you sharing this message with us. I love you. I love that you are home now with your family for a little bit before you go back. But when you go back, I love that you have a team waiting for you, and there's joy and excitement and a new vision as you think about going back into ministry where you are. So I love you. Go with God, and God bless you.
Thank you. It has been wonderful and a delight today. Thanks, Dana.
You bet.